draped over chairs. "This is all for you," Cha said, watching her explore the space with obvious delight. "Your home, your sanctuary, your place to rest and heal from everything you've endured. No one will ever treat you badly here. No one will make you feel worthless or unwanted." Vanessa touched the soft fabric of a chair, ran her fingers along the smooth surface of a table, and looked out a window that showed a view of gardens and distant mountains rather than the rundown neighborhood she remembered from outside. It was like stepping into a fairy tale, a place where beautiful things happened to ordinary people. But even as she marveled at the luxury around her, part of her mind was struggling with a more fundamental question. "Why?" she asked, turning to face Cha. "Even if everything you've said is true, why would you choose me? I'm nobody special. I have nothing to offer someone like you." Cha smiled, and for the first time since she had met him, Vanessa saw genuine warmth and affection in his expression. "You have everything to offer," he said softly. "You have a heart that remained kind despite years of cruelty. You have strength that allowed you to survive when most people would have been broken. You have integrity that couldn't be corrupted even when corruption might have made your life easier." He moved closer to her, his voice becoming more intense as he spoke. "Do you know how rare that is? How many people can maintain their goodness when the world seems determined to destroy it? How many people can continue to care about others when no one seems to care about them?" Vanessa felt tears starting to form in her eyes as she listened to him speak about her in ways that no one ever had before. Angela had spent years convincing her that she was worthless, that her kindness was weakness, that her attempts to help others were just attention-seeking behavior. To hear someone describe those same qualities as valuable and admirable was overwhelming. "I don't know if I'm the person you think I am," she said honestly. "I don't feel strong or special. Most of the time I just feel tired and scared." "That's exactly why you are the person I think you are," Cha replied. "You kept going even when you felt tired and scared. You continued to be kind even when kindness was met with cruelty. You maintained hope even when you had every reason to despair." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully before continuing. "I want to give you the life you should have had all along. Not because you need to earn it or prove you deserve it, but because you already have proved it through the way you've lived despite everything that was done to you." As the reality of her situation began to sink in, Vanessa felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the possibility of genuine happiness. Not just the absence of pain or the temporary relief of completing a task without criticism, but actual joy at the prospect of a future that might hold good things, rather than just more suffering. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Now," Cha said with a smile that transformed his entire face, "you get to discover who you really are when you're not just trying to survive." That evening, as golden light filtered through windows that definitely hadn't existed in the ramshackle house they'd entered, Vanessa found herself sitting at a dining table that could have belonged in a palace. The meal before her was unlike anything she had eaten in years: tender roast beef, vegetables that hadn't been overcooked into mush, bread that was still warm from the oven, and desserts that looked like works of art. "I had my cook prepare some of her favorite foods," Cha said, watching her hesitate over the abundance. "Though I realize I may have guessed wrong about what those might be." Vanessa looked up at him in surprise. "How could you possibly know what I like?" "I barely know what I like anymore. Angela always said I was too picky, so I learned to eat whatever was put in front of me without complaining." "I noticed the way you looked at the fruit stand in the market last week," Cha said gently, "and how you always chose the vegetables that were still fresh when you did the shopping, even though it meant walking further to find the better vendors. Small things, but they told me you still cared about quality and beauty, even when you couldn't afford them." The realization that he had been watching her, studying her habits and preferences with such care, was both touching and slightly overwhelming. Vanessa had become so accustomed to being invisible, to having no one notice or care about her needs, that this level of attention felt almost foreign. As they ate, Cha told her more about his real life, the businesses he owned, the properties scattered across the country, the charitable foundations he supported. But he also asked her questions about herself, about dreams she might have had before Angela's cruelty crushed them, about things she might want to do now that she was free. "I used to want to learn to read better," Vanessa admitted shyly. "Father taught me the basics before he died, but Angela said education was wasted on someone like me. She needed me to work, not waste time with books. There's a library in the East Wing, Aim Cha said matter-of-factly, as if having entire wings of a house was perfectly normal. Tomorrow, if you'd like, I can show you. We can also arrange for tutors, or university classes, or whatever kind of learning appeals to you. The casualness with which he offered these opportunities, things that had seemed impossibly out of reach just hours before, made Vanessa's head spin. I don't understand why you're being so kind to me, she said, setting down her fork with hands that still trembled slightly. What if I disappoint you? What if I'm not worth all this investment? Emeka's expression grew serious, and he reached across the table to gently cover her hand with his own. Vanessa, I need you to understand something. This isn't an investment that you need to pay back. This isn't kindness that you need to earn. This is simply what your life should be, what anyone's life should be when they're surrounded by people who care about them. Later that night, as Vanessa stood in the doorway of what Aim Cha had called her bedroom, she was struck by a sudden wave of panic. Despite everything he had said about kindness and freedom, she was still married to this man. She still had no legal rights, no independent means of survival, no way to leave if his apparent generosity turned out to be another kind of trap. As if sensing her thoughts, Aim Cha appeared in the hallway behind her. Vanessa, he said softly, I should have made this clear earlier. This marriage, it doesn't have to mean anything you don't want it to mean. You have your own space, your own privacy, your own choices. I hope that someday you might come to care for me as I already care for you, but there's no pressure, no expectations. You're free to simply be yourself and discover what that means. The relief that flooded through her was so intense it nearly brought her to her knees. You mean that? She whispered. I mean it, he assured her. Sleep well, Vanessa. Tomorrow we can start figuring out what kind of life you want to build. 3 weeks into her new life, Vanessa was beginning to believe that happiness might actually be possible when a furious pounding on the front door shattered the peaceful morning. Through the window, she could see Angela standing on the porch, her face twisted with rage and what looked like barely controlled desperation. Let me in, Angela shouted, her voice carrying clearly through the walls. I know you're in there, you ungrateful little witch. And you too, you pathetic excuse for a man. Vanessa felt her entire body go cold with familiar terror. Even in this beautiful house, surrounded by luxury and kindness, the sound of Angela's voice could still transport her back to years of fear and abuse. Her hands began to shake, and she found herself looking around frantically for places to hide, despite knowing that hiding had never worked before. It's all right, Aim Cha said calmly, appearing beside her with that quiet confidence she was learning to find comforting. She can't hurt you anymore. You don't have to see her if you don't want to. But as Angela's shouting grew louder and more abusive, attracting the attention of neighbors and passers-by, Vanessa realized that avoiding this confrontation would only delay the inevitable. Angela would keep coming back, keep making scenes, keep trying to drag Vanessa back into her web of manipulation and control. I want to face her, Vanessa said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. I want her to see that I'm not afraid anymore. Aim Cha studied her face carefully. Are you sure? There's no shame in protecting yourself from someone who's hurt you. I'm sure, Vanessa replied, and realized she meant it. But will you stay with me? Of course. When they opened the door, Angela pushed past them into the house, her eyes already scanning the interior with the calculating gaze of someone assessing valuable property. But as she took in the elegant furnishings, the obvious signs of wealth, and the well-dressed man standing protectively beside her stepdaughter, her expression shifted from rage to confusion to something that looked almost like fear. What is this? She demanded, her voice losing some of its earlier venom. This isn't the house I arranged for you. This isn't the life you were supposed to have. No, Vanessa said quietly, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. It's not the life you wanted me to have. It's the life I actually deserve. Angela's gaze snapped to Aim Cha, and Vanessa could practically see her mind working, trying to figure out how she had miscalculated so badly. Who are you really? She asked, her tone shifting to the false sweetness she used when she wanted something. I was told you were a poor man, someone who needed charity. Clearly there's been some kind of misunderstanding. There's been no misunderstanding, Aimcha replied, his voice carrying an authority that made Angela take an involuntary step backward. I am exactly who I chose to appear to be when dealing with you. The question is whether you're going to continue making a scene on my property or whether you're going to leave quietly and never bother my wife again. The word wife seemed to hit Angela like a physical blow. Vanessa could see her stepmother's mind racing, trying to find an angle, a way to turn the situation to her advantage. Angela had spent years convincing Vanessa that she was worthless, that no one could ever truly care about her, that her only value lay in the work she could do for others. She's nothing special, Angela said desperately, as if she could somehow undo Vanessa's good fortune through sheer force of will. She's lazy, she's stupid, she's ungrateful. I fed her, clothed her, gave her a home when no one else would have her. She owes me everything. She owes you nothing, Aimcha said firmly. And if you ever come near her again, if you ever try to contact her or spread lies about her, you'll discover exactly how much power a wealthy man can wield when someone threatens his family. The threat was delivered so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that it took a moment for Angela to fully grasp its implications. When she did, her face went pale, and for the first time in Vanessa's memory, Angela looked genuinely afraid. You can't keep her from me, Angela said, but her voice lacked conviction. I raised her. I have rights. You have no rights over her, Aimcha replied. She's an adult, she's married, and she's made her choice. The only question now is whether you'll respect that choice, or whether I'll need to take legal action to protect her from further harassment. As Angela realized that her usual tactics of manipulation and intimidation weren't going to work, something shifted in her demeanor. The mask of false maternal concern finally slipped away completely, revealing the bitter, envious woman beneath. Fine, she spat, her voice filled with venom. Keep your little princess. But don't come crying to me when you realize what a burden she really is. Don't expect me to take her back when you get tired of playing house with a worthless little orphan. I would never send her back to you, Aimcha said with quiet finality. Even if she wanted to leave me, which she's free to do at any time, I would make sure she had somewhere safe to go. Somewhere far away from people who mistake cruelty for strength. After Angela left, slamming the door behind her with enough force to rattle the windows, Vanessa collapsed into a chair, shaking from the emotional intensity of the confrontation. But underneath the trauma of facing her abuser, she felt something new and powerful growing in her chest. I stood up to her, she whispered, wonder in her voice. I actually stood up to her. You did, Aimcha agreed, sitting down beside her. How does it feel? Vanessa considered the question seriously. Terrifying, she said finally, but also liberating. Like I'm finally allowed to take up space in the world. You were always allowed to take up space, Aimcha said gently. You just needed to be in a place where that truth was recognized and protected.